even some of the strongest areas of AI right now is actually in code development. What that's doing is helping us to code faster. Being aware of it and not afraid of it and trying to use it is going to help you. That's all an encouragement to where it's helping me, it's helping you, it's helping us. So it's just an encouragement to embrace it.
Hi, this is your host, Scott Easton, and welcome to the Business of Microsoft Partners podcast, where we empower the Microsoft and Azure communities through conversations with top leaders, practitioners, and consultants. On this week's episode, I talk with Andrew Glasser, who's a business development and delivery leader, generating leads, closing deals, and managing consulting teams to effectively deliver on business strategies. For over 10 years, Andrew's been responsible for mentoring consultants, ensuring project quality, and managing staffing requirements. His diverse experience in sales management and delivery manager roles showcases his adaptability and unwavering commitment to success. Andrew Glasser, welcome to the show. How's it going today, Andrew?
Oh, going great. Thank you.
Where are you joining us from today, Andrew?
So I'm in Flowery Branch, Georgia. So I am out in the suburbs, kind of trying to get that one extra city away from the suburbs of Atlanta.
There you go. That's where the Atlanta Falcons hold their annual training camp. Yes.
Yeah, so as far north as you go in Georgia, there's always something that kind of keeps you close to Atlanta somehow.
Exactly. Since I live inside the center of the city, I think I have to have my passport visa valid to be able to leave 285 and go up in that area. But it's absolutely a beautiful part of Georgia. Well, Andrew, again, appreciate you being on the show. And as I mentioned in the intro, you've had quite a storied career where you started out as a tech person, became a developer, architect. Now you're leading pre-sales for a giant global Microsoft consultancy. And Andrew, I want to take you back to a very pivotal moment in your career where this was really a big turning point for you, where you started going to SharePoint user groups, and that was really the catalyst for your career. So take us back. What was going on? Why go to that SharePoint group? You're probably, in your 20s and you probably had other stuff to do. Why go to a SharePoint user group when there were other things you could probably find to get in trouble with?
Yeah, I also just had my first child, and he was barely one at the time, and but I was working for a company in Alpharetta that was using Citrix to help give applications to accountants, and as part of that, they needed a portal means to have a place of collaboration as a team within their accountancy and then look at all their applications. And somehow SharePoint came up, and how do we connect that with Citrix? And I was a developer, like you were mentioning, and just a web developer. And so I'll see what I can do, start figuring it out. And I needed to learn SharePoint. And I didn't know SharePoint at all. I just developer, I do web stuff and just a few data center things once in a while. But no, I needed to figure out how to make Citrix and SharePoint communicate. And yeah, there was a local user group that was also meeting in Alpharetta near the Microsoft buildings before it's all shifted now. But got to meet an amazing group and community there. Got to just be there for a few years of just learning and meeting people and networking. And then eventually, as I continue to work through that and just figure out SharePoint, with that project, that I started doing SharePoint development and was able to accomplish what we needed to at that time. But eventually it led me to my immediate next job. So coming from learning SharePoint for this one project, going into the community group and, not only just learning the product, but also seeing the people. And that led me to consulting for the first. I'm a developer, I don't know what that meant. Like what I need to do is to be a consultant. But someone asked me, like, would you like to consult with SharePoint? I'm like, okay, sure. What does this do? What are we doing here? So no, that and that's where it all started, was then that next job. And so getting the experience working with SharePoint, then trying to understand what does a consultant do, and then how do we advise for best decisions made as we use different products. And then developing on it, still had that part to it. And it grew and grew from there.
So as you transition from say developer to now becoming a consultant, what was the biggest challenge that you had in making that jump where you were behind the keyboard, but now you're out in front of the client having to deliver? And what was that like? What was your biggest challenge during that transition?
Yeah, I'm immediately thinking of so many things that SharePoint has to do with that, because it transitions so many times over a 10-year span to where what I need to do as a consultant, what I need to do as a technology person, um, I continue to have to shift. And so needed to learn new skills, but also just from a consulting perspective, I needed to realize, you know, best ways of communicating that isn't from just a code perspective. And so, you want me to tell you the structure of the code or what it's going to do and how the APIs work, like talk all day. But now it's, what am I going to do in 3 years after I start using this? Or what's my return on this? Why do I want to do it? Well, how do I train my people to use it? And so now there's all the other pieces that make the business successful for whatever you made for them. But you got to tell them how to make it successful, or how can they get the most out of that, and how is it affected by the people, that have to use this. Like, oh, I got to figure that out too. So, it's not just making the widget, but making people happy to use it and they get more productive, and how that is. And so now we're starting to strategize, when you're thinking of, I have to create something, I'm going to develop something, but now I've got to use the perspective of the user, right? I have to do it the perspective of also the business stakeholder on why did I buy it, and helping them to make that a decision down the road too, to say I still need your help, and moving from there. So completely changed my perspective.
Thanks for that explanation. I think that's the biggest challenge with a lot of developers that make that transition from being behind the keyboard to moving into something that is more client facing. That, the number one problem that I see is that developers will just talk about the code, will just talk about the flux capacitor, but the people writing the checks don't really care. They don't care if the people picker works or whatnot. It's, how does this relate to my business? How does this relate to the problem at hand? And I think that that's the biggest problem that developers have moving into consulting, is that the code and the technology is almost secondary to the business problem at hand. So going back to the user group, obviously you made some great contacts. You learned a lot about SharePoint. I guess everyone wants to know, how did that first project go with the Citrix and SharePoint? But at that user group, you also got to, besides learning the technology and meeting a lot of great people, you also picked up another very important skill. Tell us about that, like some of the presentations and getting your first chance to speak. What was that like?
Oh yes, I was very nervous to do that. I've not spoken in a community group or a setting like that before, and I've been always wanting to, after being there for like maybe 3 years, and couldn't pick a topic. So I kept going through my head like, oh, I'll do this one. I can't do that. Or maybe I'm not good enough in this one. Like, and what if they ask a question I can't answer? So I'm worried about that. But as part of, developer side, found a skill that I wanted to do, but at the same time, wanted to use this same thing to then say it's like the next big tool. It's a brand new thing. And that was PowerShell that came out, because I started to not only do development work, but I was also doing administrative support at that time too. So how do I build these servers together? How can I script something to do it faster? If I have to repeat something, more than twice, I'm going to make a script to do it instead. And so it's a little bit of a developer mentality to it, but was able to see that, PowerShell was going to be very important down the road, and picked that up. So did a lot of studying with that, made that my first speaking engagement, was what is PowerShell? How do we use it for SharePoint? And what are we going to do with it in the future? And it went great. I had a lot of fun doing that. And again, the community team and people are there just so receptive, and they're your buddies at this point, and everyone's supporting each other. So that gave me a lot of confidence to keep keep doing that kind of thing. And it helped me also just from that consulting transition that I'm making too. I'm a lot of outfront speaking. You're doing that now, C-level folk and other stakeholders that are executives. So that kind of practice as well and doing that in the community setting where you have very good support gives you a little bit more. I can do that here in my job as well. But that was kind of a turning point too, just to get that confidence in it and also be excited to see how far that's come with just that one technology. Is like, yep, PowerShell's like runs Azure, so we use it every day still.
I mean, it's become an invaluable skill for developers, consultants, any type of system integrator. It's just amazing what PowerShell can do and the flexibility that we've got compared to, say, VBS back in the day, or trying to crank this in C Sharp and Visual Studio. Microsoft has just made it so easy to to use PowerShell and really leverage some very powerful tools. So I guess the next question here, Andrew, is that you're speaking at the local user groups. As you make the next step in your career progression, you actually get to become a tech evangelist for Nintex. Tell us a little bit about that, and how did that happen, and tell us more about your experience in that area.
Yeah, so Nintex was an amazing product and it still is gaining more and more capabilities today. But it came out at a very pivotal time where workflows was complicated in SharePoint. And as businesses wanted to use more and more automation, right? They want to make sure this item gets to the other side and everyone approves it and this is generated out of that and automate it. Do it quick, do it cheap, be able to monitor it. And Nintex had all of that. It was amazing. So we were using it for almost any business need you can think of. And then their forms product allowed that to take it, outside of the desk. You can now go somewhere on your phone and fill out a form, and it submits it back to the department that needs to review it. And so it really accelerated the ability to do workflow automation, forms automations, and we were using it everywhere, and it was extremely popular. And that kind of came as part back to that community group where we were using it in our SharePoint user group. We were speaking about it, saying like this thing is very, very helpful. But I started meeting more people at the Nintex company themselves, and from that they had a program that they called Virtual Tech Evangelists that they were starting up, and I got to be a part of that. And so that just gave me more ability to speak directly with them, learn more about the product firsthand, participate in, hey, these are new changes are coming. What do you think about it? And that was amazing. So I actually got to participate in its own growth, be more familiar with some of the things that are happening. And that just enabled me to give more solutions to my customers. But it just grew to another community, that just more people to be there to help you out, support you. Um, and they had their own conferences too. And so they had conferences in a few different cities. And this was the next big step again of I did some community speaking at the SharePoint user group, but now we're going to a conference and that they put on, and lots of people that are there and do a session speaking there for Nintex as well. And so I did my first like 200 person in a room speaking engagement there, which was I try to make a little fun out of it because I'm so nervous to do it. So I tried to make a game as a part of that using their product, and so allow people to get on this on their phone. They can submit this, and they see it on the big screen as they interact with. Oh yeah, absolutely. So I got them to participate in showing them pieces that they may not see or realize that, this type of automation is there and do that live. So it wasn't just go down the list and it was let's make a game out of the whole thing and learn it. But I was doing that just to calm myself down.
You took a big chance because everyone knows the golden rule of any type of technical demo, that there's always something that happens. And when you've got, yeah, and when you've got the audience participating on their phones trying to submit those questions, you're like, oh my gosh, what else could possibly go wrong? So speaking has obviously been a really big part of your career here, your career progression. Have you gone to any type of formal speaker training or read books, or what have you done to prepare besides just summon up courage?
It's more of just being in the seat too, you know. So I watch a lot of others do that. So I've been able to go to other conferences, and while they're doing that, I guess at the same time, I in one year I'm hearing what we're talking about, and the other year I'm kind of hearing like, how did he do that, you know, or what were they talking about, or you know, what was she doing with her hands, and you know, are we grabbing the podium or whatever. So sometimes I just kind of paid attention to it, more so because I wanted to do that next one, and so I just watched and learned, I guess.
I think this is a really important point for everyone listening, is that in my discussions in prior interviews with a lot of very high performing people like Andrew, there's a very clear correlation to career success with stepping out behind the keyboard. Now, that may be publishing articles, writing in online communities, but just like you did, Andrew, you were actually there speaking in person. I mean, are there even any in-person user groups anymore? I haven't been to one in ages.
Yeah, our SharePoint User Group is still in existence, but it's virtual at the moment, and we've done like one gathering since, but it's still virtual at the moment. But even one other one, we started a Nintex user group. So me and two others, we created a group together for the Atlanta area that was just for Nintex, and you know this was back in the day, but COVID kind of allowed us, or kind of held us back. We did it virtually for a little while until that stopped. So even though I was participating in one community, we created our own around that area for that time. But yeah, not unfortunately, it's not as many, and it's a bit of the trend too, right? We work from home a little more often than we did. You know, it's how hard is it to come back and go full into what it used to be?
I have noticed lately, though, a lot more in-person lunches, dinners. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, I've been graciously invited by a couple of clients and prospective clients either to lunch, to meet with them and other strategic vendors, or a very intimate dinner with another prospective client earlier this week, just to meet a few people and swap war stories. And really cool to see just the enthusiasm that people have for getting together in person. So speaking of getting together in person, I want to go back a little bit earlier in your days also, about some other in-person events that you got to go to. And one that I know was very influential for you was your first Ignite conference in Chicago. So tell me about that. What was it like drinking from the fire hose at Ignite?
Uh, yeah, that was I think that was the first one called Ignite. It might have been like the SharePoint conference or other conferences before, like Microsoft conference, but no, I've seen a lot of others that you know, I admired, some that even our community groups, people I worked with that were architects that would be able to go to other events. And yeah, I had my opportunity. So I finally was able to go to Ignite. And that was kind of my moment of like, I made it to the big one. You know, this is the one that everybody's at. There's thousands of people there. The venue is gigantic. You know, and the other things you didn't know were going to go on are there. And even to the you know, some of the sessions end early on Thursday, and they had a band there. I was trying to remember the name of them that were there. It's like, you know, this is completely insane. Like all this stuff that's going on, and there's so many people, and then the sessions that are there, trying to, you know, some of your community heroes are there doing sessions, and you get to sit in with them or just actually talk to them. And um, yeah, it's that was just the moment, because I some people I recognize and got to meet people I didn't know. But it was the Microsoft biggest thing of the year, and I got to be a participant. No, that would be a moment, but no, I didn't get that chance to do that. But definitely love to be a part of that time. That was great. And as also that year, we're still very heavy in the Nintex side that we were speaking about. And of course, they were there and got to meet a lot of the people for the first time. Um, the VTE group of the others in around the states that we see each other in the chat rooms, and they also had like a support board that we helped in. So you've seen them type, but you never got to talk to them. And then we got to meet for the first time there, and they've been a group of friends that we still have today that we keep in contact with.
It's amazing just the connections that you can make at these conferences. And there's a really cool energy about being at a conference. I mean, I remember my very first conference. No laughing. It was Lotusphere way back in the day. And where did they have it? It was, I think it was like a Disney World resort. And that was like my first big kid conference that I got to go to. And I was just blown away. I'm like, wow, I've really kind of arrived also. And it's interesting that you have the same feeling of, it's almost a rite of passage for a young person in technology to go to a major conference where all of a sudden you're like, I've arrived. And it's a really exciting feeling to be involved in something like that, even just as a participant.
Yeah, you see in ways of that of I have my projects and we have our work, we have our customers and so on, but then you kind of get out of sight of that with the user group. You're like, okay, there's another 50 people I know they're doing this in my area. And then you go to the conference and there's 30,000. I'm like, what is the number? All participating in things that you're related to. You're like, oh, wow. It's a lot bigger than I expected. And that's where you get that, like, you know, the enormity of it all.
Exactly. Well, Andrew, maybe jumping forward a few steps in your career here, you went from developer to consultant, and then you have the chance to actually become a team lead and move into management. Walk us through what was that transition like? How did you get that opportunity, and what was that transition?
Yeah, so our group was growing and growing for our collaboration area group. And for that, I was leading projects as more of like a technical architect, but then that's where that being the stakeholders advisor at the customer and doing that more and more for bigger and bigger projects. And as our team grew, we were able to be a team manager for just a small group of five, and then that led to larger numbers down the road. But that experience was there was a lot there. There was quite a few years there of just how can I help somebody to do something better, right? How can I maybe not just not only be a cheerleader that I thought was very important to do, but also to give somebody advice. And that's what I was really worried about. If I were to do that, how would they take it? Is it useful advice, or am I just making this up? And trying to go through that in your mind. And so just the more and more opportunities I had in doing that, I became more and more passionate about how I can help somebody to see their own potential. And that's where, as I moved into another group, I kind of went further along into New Signature and was a Southeast workplace lead. And now, we have about 30 people that were involved, and we have external contractors that we're dealing with. How do we keep everything moving? How do we do the sales for that? But then again, support others to see that, I think of one example here of where I'm thinking about, potentials. So I was helping with just one team member that is amazing in our projects, just absolutely amazing. And every stakeholder they ever worked with, I get an email back like, this person's amazing. And so as we go through like the regular reviews, you bring those things up. Like, look at all these things that people say about you. Like, you really do amazing good work. Would you mind helping me? Let's make you a team lead. Like, oh, no, I can't do that. It's like, I'm never going to be able to do that at all. It's like, but everyone else thinks you can. Like, it's not just me. Like, you really have the capabilities to do that. Everyone trusts what you do. You can really make this happen, and I'll support you, and we'll get through that. And then making that step, and have them that opportunity to do that, and then seeing them enjoy it, right, when they finally get that opportunity to do it. Yes. So finally, and those are things that those what make you, you know, the things that you get out of it, the fulfillment for being a team manager is those moments when you can see someone make that step in their own capabilities and their own career. And if you had just, one word to support it and that it did that, that's the fulfillment.
It's an amazing story because you're really changing someone's life there where they're now on a completely different trajectory where they believe initially they could only sit behind the keyboard or only stay in this one particular role. And that's where the role of a good coach and manager comes in to say, you've really got the potential to do this. And, I love the fact that you told this person, we'll support you during that transition. We'll be right there with you every step of the way. Give them at least some type of safety net, if you will, where, they can jump across that board.
Because being every project's escalation point isn't fulfilling, but helping people and then watch people grow, that makes a difference.
Exactly. Well, so Andrew, again, you went from the team lead to technical manager, managing technical groups. Tell us about today. So now you're really more on the sales aspect here. Is that correct? So talk about that transition from technical management to now having to sell. Do you just make a bunch of promises and just tell the technical people to go solve it?
Like getting into SharePoint was odd. Like, why did I do this? And like, I'm in SharePoint now. It's gone amazing. My career's been defined by it. But it was so odd to me to go from development and then doing the SharePoint, then doing consulting. Like, how in the world did I land here in consulting? And then as a team lead, the same thing is like, you turn around like, wait a minute, how did I get here? But then, as that moves along, I always said like, I'm never going to do sales. It's like, I don't want to do it. I see everyone else who's like, I'm not going to do sales. And then I find out like, oh, wait, we've been doing it the entire time. And so it's like, that was a bigger step too. Is like, I love being a delivery lead and I still participate in a lot of, team delivery and helping support those pre-project, right? So making sure I understand that customers need really, really well so that the delivery team knows exactly what they're getting into and how they can solve the problem and what the customer needs down the road. And so I do a lot of that transition. But now as director for pre-sales at Cognizant, have a group of amazing team members that are doing like technical sales or solution sales. And so we help to turn a need, into an opportunity and make sure that our delivery teams can succeed. And so it's our job to make sure they have every ability to succeed in that too. And so doing it now of more of that front end and more of that sales, it was a little more or easier transition than I expected because again, it was that mindset is like, I don't want to be just sales. Like that's not gonna how it's gonna happen. But then I realized again, it's like I've been selling for well over a decade on every project I've been doing, and it's the same thing. So I've been to love it, love the team. Really getting some amazing experiences because of the newer things that are coming out now and that newer transition of technology. Not as much SharePoint anymore, right? So I'm learned a lot in our Azure cloud, public cloud capabilities and helping to resell that. But then now we have Copilot in the era of AI and being able to participate that way, being on the front end of what's going on with AI and how can we make something that is a need for our customers, right? And I've been thankful that as I've been trying to build, like, how do we message this to our customers about using Copilot? I got to use it a lot.
And that's an interesting transition point. So tell us a little bit as much as you can regarding the Copilot offerings that you're working on at Cognizant.
I was really kind of skeptical. What are we going to do with this, or how is it going to look? And we have, AI is, all we've been discussing for a year. But now that it's a product and we need to utilize it, we need a return on it because it's expensive per users and so on. You know, how do we get it? But I was able to get access to it too and use it a lot myself. And then the big moment that happened for me of why it's like, okay, I can see how this will really help anybody. Went on vacation, had to come back from vacation, and I had almost 500 emails to go through. And then I just spoke to Copilot, like, what happened here? Who did what? Where did that go? And it summarized it, told me where this was, told me which I needed to respond to or what had not yet been worked out. And I got through it all in an afternoon. I'd never done that before. It'd be like 4 days. I'm still trying to get back, like, what happened last week, but didn't have to do that. My meetings were all summarized and like, wow. so, um, that's my biggest thing. And my other antidote that I love with using Copilot, I have little time in the day, and I get over 100 emails in a day, and so I write quick emails like, this is what I need to have happen, and I write it out. But then I realize that's not very human of me. Like I need to be a little more neutral, or and change that, not be so direct. I just tell Copilot, make this neutral, and then like, here's what you said, and it reprints it back out. And I'm like, oh, that's great. So it's not as, it doesn't sound like you're chasing anybody with a stick. It's more of like, this is a proper email now.
That's a super interesting point, because when it comes to person communication, there's so much that can be misconstrued over email, that you may just be in a hurry and you type out a quick note and you don't think anything of it. But, as a manager or as a leader, if you're sending something to a direct report or to a client, people, because of, the position that you're in, can read into all sorts of nefarious things that you had no intention of. It's just, I'm in a hurry and I needed to get this out.
No, that's definitely true, and really appreciate that. And I think the biggest thing for me is I'm excited about its future, because now it's in all of our other products, and it's in Excel, and that's really working out well. PowerPoint, and we're able to use Gen AI to create proposals. I mean, it's really amazing. But the moment where I think that, man, next year it's going to be outrageous, was when I was doing exactly that, writing an email out, but I responded to an email saying I had spoken to someone and we're going to go do these activities. And then it said, make it more neutral again. Well, when it reprinted it, it put that person's name that I was thinking about, but I didn't say who it was. But because of the context of the conversation, it figured out who I was speaking with and re-put that name in there. And it's like, it's a real AI. Like, this isn't made up. It's not just, playing with the words. It actually figured out what's going on. And then I realized then, is like, okay, this isn't just word salad thing. This is actually pretty powerful, and it's going to do some crazy things in the next year.
So that leads me to my next question here, is that one challenge that my firm has seen, and I'd be very interested to get your take on this, is that there's a lot of interest in Copilot and AI from clients, but the typical conversation that at least I hear is people are coming to us, and I'm sure they're probably coming to you saying, well, tell me what Copilot can do for me. But oftentimes, as you know, with any type of technology, say SharePoint workflow is a good example. You have to have some type of business problem defined. Tell us about what the conversations, as much as you can, what are those Copilot conversations like today, and how do you navigate that?
Yeah, a lot of that is trying to find personal productivity, right? And then you helping understand the collective add that brings eventually, right? And that's what you gain from that. Not just doing it in your emails. That it's saving me countless hours in a month. It really is. And being able to demonstrate that to customers as they're asking, being able to demonstrate using it in your day to day, like creating PowerPoints and so on. When you can show its individual productivity gains, then that's where it comes into, let's step back now, and we're all doing that together. We're all gaining just a little bit of time every in our weeks, and then how that adds up to it. But also just the de-stressor of it too. And I think that's I've shared my own experiences with that, to where if we're gaining time in our week, we're gaining time in our month, and then as a team we can maybe do a little bit more collaboration together because of that, for spending less time in emails. Um, but if I'm have that confidence to where I can do those things, I can get these things done, I can not sound direct in my emails, that that really kind of brings a little bit of pressure off to where, I feel a little bit, as Microsoft does have a way to evaluate, like, these are the people's well-being in this as well, right? What can we do with this gain time? If we can see it as a department or as a business, like, if we gain a couple hours in a month, then can I use that time to do training? Can I do some self training with that? And then, like, for me, it's like there's always more work, but I got to balance that, right? And so, but at least now I can talk about it. Right now, I can say, like, where am I going to go with this? I can have more things added to my plate, but now I at least have the chance to say, what can I do in rescheduling my time? And that's a change. That's a change in pace, right? That gives us that chance to do that.
One of my favorite tools is the transcribe feature in Teams for Teams meetings, the ability to record Teams meetings, transcribe those, and really get the key action items. Those have been some of my favorite AI tools, either the native Microsoft tools or a few other things that I use externally.
So instead of watching the entire recording, you just say, give me the summary.
Yes. And so I'll often go back to those meeting notes or those transcriptions. And we've used it to help build SOWs, to really refine, to go back and listen to what clients are saying about what their needs are. And it really helps us get more to the quick and the matter. And so those have been invaluable and just a great productivity tool, because no matter how good your notes are, you're always going to miss some type of nuance. And it's great to be able to go back and rewind the game tape, so to speak, and actually, see what is going on there. So again, yeah, just great tools from and again, getting out of Copilot and AI and the productivity suites. What are some interesting industries or maybe even high level use cases outside of, say, email or meeting transcription that you're seeing clients at least talking about or thinking about, where they might want to use the AI tools?
I've been really close to the MLEU, the utilities manufacturing industry for a long time. I got to be on site for one for years, working in their factories, being able to participate in their safety teams, even some of their legal departments, even, and the whole array of what goes on for that industry. I've worked in pretty much every industry now, but just so much of seeing the output of what does software do for them and how does it make it better for them. Um, and so automation for those areas has really accelerated a lot. And especially when it gets even into the AI, it's like, first we're trying to accelerate, trying to digitize some things that we didn't have before. The digital twins is a term you hear a lot. There's still people that use paper to report back information that happened over here in this plant. That takes days to get back to the teams. Let's fix that, make it digital. But now, if we take our information, what have we done with all of this information, and how do we turn it into either predicting something that's going to happen, being able to respond faster to certain things, or even with IoT is now heavily being applied as it's gotten cheaper and easier to be able to put in place. And but now we have even more data. What do we do with that? And so now we're able to apply that Gen AI, which is just AI on data. Just help us see what's here that we're not seeing, and request information out of it, and taking that back and being able to transform your business. Either it's we're able to save time, save money, be safer, lower costs, all coming out of just the massive amount of data we're finally being able to create. But what do we got to do with it?
My question here is, because AI, machine learning, predictive maintenance, like you spoke about, those are super technical topics. What does that conversation look like at, say, the C-level or the stakeholder level? Are you talking more about benefits and outcomes, or are they more interested in the nitty-gritty bits and technical parts? What are those pre-sales conversations looking like?
Some ways it's still the traditional. How do I lower costs and have a better product, right? And that's where you're really taking that. But then there's the ones that I really appreciate are the ones that also say, how do I make a better customer service for what we create? And in that layer too is all connected, not just I lower the cost or try to make a better product, but how do I make better customer service for the thing that we're making? And that's where we can really take it to the next level. And because we're thinking about where this all goes, right? Instead of just behind the door or in the factory of how do I lower costs or make it better, but we're taking it outside the door. Where does it go from here? And how do I keep in contact with them? How do I make sure that they can respond to me faster? And now if we have communications and we create customer service, not just with that, but with the item they have or the product you're creating, or it's tools of a certain company I'm thinking of, then you'll be able to have that, customer for life. And then you're getting to a layer like I did lower costs, I did make a better product, but my repeat sales is all tied to that if we do it right. And then now we're thinking down the road.
I've got a few esoteric questions for you around AI and Copilot, but I'd be very curious to get your take on this. You see in the headlines today a lot of talk about layoffs because of AI. I don't know if that's necessarily a cover story for people. What would your recommendation be to someone who's concerned about AI perhaps taking over their job?
It is an interesting more of that cover story, and I've seen a lot of these layoffs and things, and there's some other stuff that goes on in there, and I don't really see that they're connected with we rolled out AI, so I don't need all of it. I haven't seen that. It really isn't. And because it's that individual productivity tool to make your life easier, to take that stress off of it. And again, we gave back to my own examples of how I'm using it. Just being aware of it and not afraid of it and trying to use it is going to help you, and it'll do those things for yourself. But then, yes, where our business or our boss is seeing that we're participating in it, that's all an encouragement to where it's helping me, it's helping you, it's helping us, and it's something we should try to utilize wherever we can, where it's appropriate. And but it's only making it to where that is stronger, that is better. You have more capabilities. But it's not in a collective sense of it automated the whole thing. And it isn't doing any of that. Even some of the strongest areas of AI right now is actually in code development, more so than my personal day to day. But what that's doing is helping us to code faster, make it more accurate, less having to recreate things. And that's assisting the developers now. And so it's, those developers are just learning it as we do with any other tool that we've got. We had a new VDI that comes out. Well, we use that. We do this better. We do NPM now. We didn't have that before. So any one of these tools that just continue to come out just made us do something faster and more accurate. And each generation of that new thing that came. So it's just an encouragement to embrace it.
I think if I recall way back in the day when Visual Studio first came out, there was all sorts of concern that developers would no longer be needed and that your administrative assistant would be writing all your code. And it was the end of developers. And, fast forward, the same type of conversation. And it's very curious. Some of the studies that I've read, and one of my favorite AI stories is around, if you remember Gary Kasparov back in the 90s, he was the Russian chess master that lost to, what was it? Deep Blue yes. And everyone thought that was the end of chess as a human sport. But fast forward to today, and I believe that some of the top ranked chess teams in the world are what are called centaurs, man and machine working together. And those literally beat, either the single combo of man on their own or machine on their own. And so the lesson here is that if you're worried about your job or concerned about AI, is that co-opting AI and making AI your friend is almost your best defense. Well, is your best defense. Yes. Yes, exactly. Someone's going to have to manage the machine at some point. We don't want to, we don't want to just let it go off on its own. Well, Andrew, Tell us what's next. What's your career goals here? Where are you ultimately trying to get to?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I really, it's wanting to be, the most that I can do it where I'm at, but also at the same time, being able to help as many people as I can. So love seeing our community still exist, still get to see that and participate in it. I did get my one luncheon with teammates that kind of live in Tennessee and Georgia and group up once, so regrow that again as we kind of get out of those years that we've had recently, and you really take it from here, seeing what those opportunities are. I love helping the delivery team still, so I kind of have that arm over there and the arm in the sales, and just trying to be that bridge to help others to be successful in what they're doing. So take it from here.
Exactly. And, I think that's the whole thing is that, the capstone of your career is being able to sell. And I really think that that is an invaluable skill, is that there's the delivery side. But at the end of the day, if you can bring the money in, that is the absolute key. That is the spark for any project, is someone closing the deal. And, it's an amazing evolution just hearing about your career as, you know, a guy behind the keyboard to becoming a speaker to now you're out on the front lines and you're selling AI projects. I mean, when you were younger, could you even imagine doing something like that?
No, not at all. No, I was totally fine with just the keyboard and me, and I even had a desk back then where I would turn off the fluorescent lights above me because I just got to see what I'm doing here. But yeah, no, it's been fun. I love the transitions that have happened, and sometimes as the technology keeps transitioning, take it on, go with the next thing that's there. And a lot of times things like SharePoint defined what I was for the longest time, and that took me to the next level to where other things are now defining what it is, and being willing to kind of let that go a little bit and grab something new and run with it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Andrew, again, thank you so much for being on the show today. If people want to learn more about you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. It's AJ Glasser is my profile, but no, I'm there trying to hunt down some of the newest things that are happening. We get a lot of great information about AI there. Our Cognizant Microsoft Business Group is also posting a lot there that I'll be participating in or reposting and so on. But I love keeping up with where things are heading, listening in on the industries that are there, and seeing what all y'all are up to.
Well, Andrew, thank you again for sharing your incredible journey. Just an amazing story. I'll get my passport renewed so I can come visit you in Flowery Branch outside of Atlanta. So, again, well, Andrew, thank you so much for being on the show, and a pleasure as always.